on.
Good. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's June 6th school board meeting. I'd like to call it to order. If you can't hear me, can you hear me now? Hi. Yeah, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with your last Pledge of Allegiance. Could you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. With that, I will read the mission statement. The Newmarket School District is committed to the highest standards of quality education. We ensure a safe and successful learning community. We embrace diversity and respond to the social, emotional, intellectual, and physical needs of every child. We strive to work with the broader community to ensure that students develop lifelong skills, enabling them to be contributing and productive members of society. So with that, I think we have quite an extensive recognitions program tonight. Are you ready to?
Yeah.
Almost? I didn't have any jokes prepared.
It's dead air here at the moment.
Well, at least we have a full room.
I'm ready now.
You ready now?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. It's great to see you all here. We have a variety of recognitions tonight, which are really, really special end-of-year recognitions for us. I'm going to start with recognition of our student representative, Emma Valinsky, who has served very well for the last year. I mean, more than very well. Just a terrific representative. She really has been the student voice in a variety of ways, and I would say very persistent as well, because she stays through meetings when I'm guessing she's got other responsibilities she has to get to too, and yet she stays through it all. So we're going to miss you. We miss you the very best, and you moving on to college, the University of Mary Washington, correct?
Yes.
In Fredericksburg, Virginia, right? Mm-hmm. Terrific. Well, best of luck to you. Come down here, and I've got a gift for you.
Oh, good.
Okay.
This is all Penny, isn't it?
Oh, that's
The
all
stickers?
Penny.
You
Yes,
should just like
stickers.
keep the stickers.
Yeah.
I want to, yes. I got it.
Thank you all very much. Aw, I'm so talented. Didn't even need scissors. Yeah, I know. Look at that.
Yeah, no. She's good. Have to wear this on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, this. Oh.
That was going to be a picture of Mr. Hayes.
Want a hug?
Terrific. Good luck to you. Good luck to you.
Do you want a hug? I'll bring this back.
And now is your last official duty.
Okay.
You get to introduce your replacement.
So I would like to introduce Ashley Hodgson as my replacement as school board representative. Yay! Have a seat. Okay, forget my card.
That's good stuff.
Oh yeah, I need to keep all the stickers.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes.
No, we don't have a nameplate for you yet, but
does
it's
Emma
on
take
order.
hers?
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right.
Right. gonna need that someday.
I was gonna say, should we meet in the office?
I'll just put it on my dorm door. There you Maybe your Vanna?
You can be. I think that'd be great if you did. I think that'd be great if you did. We have 3 teachers retiring from many years of service to the district this year. And one has probably set the record as far as, certainly in my time, to stay here 43 years and give 43 terrific years to the Newmarket School District is just an incredible accomplishment. And it's going to be tough saying goodbye, but he's reminded me more than once in the last at least 2 years, I'm not going far. I'm going to be back and substituting or who knows what. But it's my pleasure to recognize and honor the 43 years for Greg Thayer, science teacher.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
So, this I suppose that's open?
You should. Yes, why not?
I just want to say while you're doing that, that I have the pleasure of having had you as a teacher. And
I think half the town.
yeah, I'm not the only one. But I think back then I didn't really appreciate it, but I do now that you were like one of the only teachers that I had come in contact with at that point that would really, if you didn't understand something, you would always try and figure out another way, and you would stay after school and just do whatever until someone got it. And
That's beautiful.
oh, that's neat. So I
It's
just
an apple.
oh, it's a
crystal.
crystal.
Crystal apple. That's beautiful. Thank you.
So I just want to say, I think we're not just losing a teacher, but we're losing a great mentor to our younger teachers too.
Thank you.
So, but please don't be a stranger.
No, I won't. I mean, it's my town, my home. Thank you again.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And another veteran who is retiring, which is an exciting thing in itself, retiring at the end of this year. After 18 years of service to the district, Joyce Stevens, who's been a reading specialist and just a terrific addition throughout the years here. We're going to wish you the very best, Joyce.
You know what the surprise is.
Yes, you're very welcome, and thank you. And David Clark, I don't see him, right?
Oh, really?
No, yeah, we have he didn't confirm with me, but anyway, a third retiree, David Clark. He's been with the district for 5 years and has decided it's time to retire and move on to other things. And I know we will all wish him well, and we'll make sure he gets his gift as well.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
How many years
good.
was it?
5 years here.
Right, nice.
But he's been a teacher in a number of places, so it's been a pretty terrific career for him. So. Now we're going to shift gears to some 8th graders. Back in, I want to say April, I think it was. May? Was it in May? Yeah, okay, because it's been a few weeks. But there was an 8th grade science fair, and I didn't go the evening when parents were there, but I went by during the day and got a look at all the projects, and having looked at them the last 2 years, at least from my years here, I thought they were superior to what I've seen in the past. So people really have stepped up, both students and staff, in developing really quality projects. And so we have 3 winners to that science fair that we want to honor tonight. I have the gifts, okay. First one to honor here is 3rd place. It went to Britt Wakander for the effect of music on heart rate. You're very welcome. And in 2nd place was Donovan Harrington. This is what I was scribbling up there, the effect of liquids on strength of teeth. Yes, terrific. Awesome job. Good for you. Good for you. And then 1st place for the effects, of stress balls on test scores. Ashley Berthune. But that's terrific that you really got that invested in science and have been that successful, and hopefully you all carry that on as you move on into high school next year, right? Awesome. Good for you. All right, that concludes our recognitions. What we do now is we take about a 5-minute break. The remaining board members would certainly like to congratulate our honorees tonight, and then after that, we'll resume our meeting. So we'll take a 5-minute break.
like any of it.
Jen, did this change from the original one that we put?
Slightly. We're at the very end, and that's why it's not red.
Let's say, do my best to everybody over there. Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Ready? Hi. Are we ready?
Shayna, she's so funny.
Are we back on yet?
Yes.
Okay, I guess we'll continue with our program. This is the part where we welcome visitors to make comments. Is there anyone that'd like to make a comment?
Opening night, tomorrow night, Floating Princess.
Yay.
Poster for the bulletin board outside.
Oh, thanks.
Friday night at 6:30 and Saturday at 2 o'clock. Tickets are $1 per student, $3 per adults. Come prepared to be dazzled.
Yes. Thank you, Joanne.
Good luck.
Very exciting. Anyone else? No, seeing none? All right, and we move on to minutes. Would there be a motion?
I motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Quite complete and thorough as usual.
Yes, very nice job. All right, if there's no more comments, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes 4-0. Okay, moving right along. Student report. Ms. Hodgson,
All right.
welcome.
So last Saturday was the Meet of Champions, and we had 3 students who participated: Hannah Wood, Zach Rose, and Nick Espo. Hannah competed in the 200, the 400, and Zach competed in the 3-meter hurdles, and Nick competed in the 400-meter hurdle. 4-meter dash, sorry. And they all came within the top 15 of the state. And then 6th grade and 9th grade are having NEWA testing this week. Next week is senior week with graduation on Friday, June 14th at Sits in the Gym. And then June 10th is the all-school walk, which will be during advisory. And also the spring sports awards for the high school. For underclassmen, they have awards on the 17th of June. And the 18th to the 21st will be finals week. And on the 18th will be a red day, and you'll have your A and B block. And then the 19th will be a black day, A and B. Wednesday, or actually Thursday, will be red C and D, and Friday will be black C and D. On June 21st is the 8th grade commencement. And the last thing, the final standings for baseball and softball. The varsity baseball team went 13-4, and the girls varsity softball team went 8-10. And that's it.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yep.
We've been busy. Any questions, Ashley? No, nice job.
Should we ask her how many more days before
Oh,
graduation?
yeah. Well, she's not a senior.
She's next year.
180.
A lot.
All right, Dr. Hayes, your superintendent's report.
Yes, yeah. Much of my report was about things that appear later in the meeting, but I do have a number of things to comment about. One, I was certainly going to comment about a floating princess, but that's already been taken care of. Nice job and good luck with that. Really. I have there's a meeting I wanted to let you know about later on this week that I along with Steve Fornia, the town administrator, will be meeting with this group from Link Together. They have a service learning group. What a terrific group of kids they are, and what a great learning experience for them, because what they are doing is working to enter into the 5th annual Be Big contest sponsored by Scholastic, where they hope to win as much as $5,000 for the community. And their concept is around trying to find new ways or better ways to work on a way to get information out to the community. So from a kid's perspective, but they've taken the time to gather data from what happens in the community, and Steve and I will be meeting with them and helping them to put together a proposal, and hopefully they'll be successful. So that will be on June 17th. Let's see. Also on June 17th is Field Day for the elementary school. That's a great take if you have the time. Especially the parade in the beginning is just something to behold. So if you can make some time on the 17th, you should get there. I wanted to comment about School Spotlight. As you know, the first program we put out there for the art department went out, and I know it was seen by a lot of folks from the data that we get. The next one is already out there. I didn't know that, but they started Monday putting it on TV, and this is the one about music and drama and the band room. And so when I asked him, I said, is it online yet? Can you go to the town website? And he said, no, but within a day you'll be able to. Now this one, because of the nature of what we did, it's longer than the other one. So be prepared for, movie length. No, not really, but longer than a half an hour, or as you watch online, just watch part and then come back. But it really, I think, is a very interesting, revealing kind of look at what happens on the stage and behind the stage, and some very good perspectives from kids about a variety of topics that we talked about. The next next episode that he's working on deals with wellness and health and PE, and he's editing that, deals with the gym and the weight room. We've already filmed the 4th episode, which Dan Bison and I did a complete tour of the entire science egress project. It was the before picture of all of those spaces to talk about what needs to happen and what it'll look like after. And so we want to spend some time with that, give the before, do some other things later on with construction in action, and then finish up in next fall with the new arrangement. So I put on your desk this evening the SST enrollment, which I received on Monday night. I'm a member of the board of directors there for Seacoast School of Technology, and I was very pleased to get these numbers. I like to see the level of participation. We have a total of 61 students who intend to go to SST next year. And that's up from this year, though this year's was down. Usually we're in the mid-50s, so it really has rebounded, I guess is how I'd say it. And they'd have just terrific programs there. The other thing I would mention to you, you see a column further down in column H, GBC is Great Bay Charter, and there's some other charters. Under the state law now, the resident district pays for the charter child to go to SST, even though they don't go to any of our schools. The fact that they reside here, we own the bill for the tuition. And so it's 61 for next year. It's 61 plus, I forget whether it's 3 or 4, but I know I've seen some paperwork on it. I think it's about 3 or 4 more. And that's a bit over what we budgeted for, I'll tell you. We budgeted for 60 kids, but still, I think participation is great, and I thought you should see that. The last thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, I don't think you've taken action on it before, but just because we've got new members here, is that where June 20th is our last meeting for the summer, and we don't usually meet again until late August, that the board empowers me to hire people if vacancies occur and hirings need to be made in the summer, to commit to them to a contract, and that it'll be in August when we come back, and that's when I'll do a formal nomination. But I can't hold up hiring people throughout the summer if we've got candidates to be hired. But we're in pretty good shape now with our hiring. We're not far behind in filling them all, really. So, and that's all I have.
Is there any questions? I have a question. I'm not really familiar with all this SST stuff.
Yes.
So in the beginning of next year, we have a certain number of kids that have committed to go. Is there a window of time that they can drop out if they don't like it?
Yeah, they
Is there?
can, yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
but-
feasible that maybe those numbers could be smaller? Not that we want them to be,
They
but.
could, but I would say a year ago, we did not have high numbers like this. It isn't something that usually dwindles. Kids usually
Commit
make
to
a
it.
good commitment to it, and they stay with it. What you see there is pretty typical between first-year programs and second-year programs. Not everybody stays for the 2 years. Sometimes they do a year and say, okay, that's enough.
Okay.
So it does drop off, but to give people at home an example, 42 people are year one students and 19 are year two, and that's pretty typical percentage. One of the things that I was struck by, if you look at pre-engineering, it's our highest. I mean, here we are, we just talked about science and recognized science, and for us, pre-engineering is highest. And when you look at pre-engineering for other communities, that isn't necessarily so. So we do stand out in that regard, I think. So I'm pleased about that.
That's great. Okay, that other part about Empower, do you need us to make a motion on that, or is it going to come up later in the program? Or
If you feel the need, you can.
I mean-
but
what do you think?
to formally authorize me to hire through the summer, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you should.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody care to make that motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to, I'm looking for the right verb, to.
Authorize.
Thank you. Authorize the superintendent to make hiring commitments to, for staff through the summer months.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Do you want any further discussion?
Oh, discussion, maybe, yeah. Do you want to talk about it? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. All right, now your facilities report.
Yes, I have several things here. First of all, regarding talks on Oyster River tuition agreement, the information I gave you in my report says the meeting is on June 18th at 6 p.m. It's at 7 p.m. I made that mistake. But we have a meeting that'll be here at the Junior Senior High School Conference Room. Items on the agenda, we're going to continue to talk about financials. We're going to review updates to the tuition agreement draft. My hope is to try and get that draft in a final form that we can then start talking about it publicly. That's really my aim for the summertime, and not wait till the fall, but to start talking about specifics. We will discuss a timeline to get final votes, and what we mean by that are school district meetings, so timelines, but I don't have that information myself just yet. And then there's a piece that we generally refer to as value added. What are the things that working together enhance both schools? We understand that Oyster River is doing something to try and preserve what they have, but we think by joining, there's enhancements beyond that and beyond what we do. So we'll be listening to reports from the directors of curriculum instruction from both districts, as well as feedback from the transition teams. The science egress construction project, one of the first steps that's done once you start a construction project is you have your hazardous removal firm go through and ensure what hazardous materials may be there. And over the end of last week, we got a report that told us there was more than we thought there was. As we thought, it was in the tile in certain areas, and in reality, it's also in the ceiling tiles in a couple classrooms, and it's also in the grout. We have a wall that has some ceramic tile, and it's also in the grout. And so that's concerning because it's going to add time to the project. It's the first step you have to do. You have to completely seal that area off and go through proper procedures of collecting all of the hazardous materials. So that's something that we will do. There is a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock to talk more about this, and I'll be attending that meeting. So there's not been a reworked timeline just yet.
Or expense? Is it added expense?
I don't, it's got to be some added expense. To what extent, I really don't know. When I've asked the architect about delay to the project, my reading of what he's saying is 1 to 3 weeks. Just really depends.
What was our original date of completion?
The original date was like the day before teachers get there.
Yeah.
It was tight. So that doesn't mean that they can't do things throughout the summer to add more hours and add more time to try and still meet that deadline, but it just makes it more challenging to do that.
So those things will be discussed as to try and still meet that deadline?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we will, yeah, and to see what needs to happen. And we have meetings scheduled on a weekly basis throughout the project, so we'll be monitoring it the whole time. I provided information in my report about the possibility of replacing mud drums and drum nipples on the boiler at the junior-senior high school. I attended a meeting earlier this week with Bob French, who is our head custodian, and also with our HVAC people, the fellow from Eckert and Johnson. And the bottom line to the decision is that what I okayed for this summer is to shut the boiler down, test it to see what we have leaks in what nipples, and then to use kits to replace them. That's a much less expensive option and much less riskier, because the other option is the mud drum is this long pipe that feeds all the sections of the boiler, and I think it's about 20 different sections. And so if you drop the pipe and replace them all, you run the risk of damaging the connection to the sections, and then you're into replacing sections, and it's like, unless you really need to, you don't want to go down that road. And so as I listened to the fellow describing, it just made sense to just use the kits, and I think that'll certainly make us comfortable for the year ahead. The boiler itself is a decent boiler. It's not the boiler that's the problem.
How old's the boiler, do you know?
I think 95, 96, I think we purchased it.
But it was refurbished when we got it, wasn't it?
I had heard that, but I tried to get evidence on that, and that wasn't the case, so I don't know.
Still-
But it is fine. If you were to walk in there and look at these mud drums, they're like these long tubes, and they're rusted to beat the band because of flooding that has gone in there. They're not corroded so that they are punky or any kind of a problem, but it's more of these, when the boiler shuts down, the nipples tend to dry out, and so they will leak. And if one gives way, then that's creating a problem. So we have to repair them. But, again, the number that I've got on here is $7,900, and it'll probably be in the vicinity of that. And it's the upper limit that I gave you of the $2,100, that's to do the whole thing, and that's $21,000, excuse me. That's putting at risk having to do even more to the boiler. And I said, no, we're not there yet. We talked about boiler replacement, but I think that's at least a year off if we really wanted to do something. So, because we got too much that's up in the air. But anyway, that's what took place this week with that, and that's what I okayed for this summer.
You have a note in there about overtime not being included in the proposal. Is there a possibility that would be needed because of things that arose in the process, or?
I think the unanticipated things is what he was getting at. The kits, that'll be pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Kits don't cost much. He said maybe $100 a piece, and then the installation is not difficult. What you can't see the leaks until you totally shut down the system. And right now, that system is also, even though it's not heating the building, to show you the inefficiency, it has to be used to provide hot water. It's an incredibly expensive hot water heater. So I think it was more, the overtime was much more if we tried to replace the entire mud pipes and all of the nipples, that
might be the
he wanted to hedge his
situation.
bet,
Mhm.
so,
Thanks.
okay.
Any other questions? No?
Yeah, the only other thing on facilities, I've already said it, but I want to say it again, is that it really, really is my goal to begin talking about the specifics of a tuition agreement and the specific costs of a tuition agreement this summer. I really think this community needs to hear it, and I'm going to, push this meeting on the 18th to try and get us to that point, because I think it's only right. We can't wait much longer here. We have to start getting it out there and letting the public hear things. So that's my goal. And that's all I have on facilities.
Okay. All right, the next part of our program is the middle school grade configuration public comment piece. So I guess this is where I would open it up. If there's any people in the audience that want to come and speak to that topic, they're welcome to come to the mic at this time. Yes, rush the microphone.
I don't have a whole lot to add. Oh, Tony Weinstein, 275 Ash Swamp Road. I don't have a whole lot to add to the conversation, but just wanted to say that I support the idea of the fifth graders moving up to the middle school. And as a parent of, I have a third grader right now, and as a parent of that age group, I feel more comfortable with my fifth grader being with eighth graders than my sixth grader being with 12th graders. So I did want to point that out. And my only other comment, I watched the budget meeting that you guys had last week. And my only other comment or takeaway from that was that the space constraints or the alleviation of the space constraints at the elementary school, I'm not sure that I completely understand that we're going to get a whole lot of benefit. I feel like that's sort of been presented that we would get a ton of benefit by moving the fifth graders up to the middle school, and I guess I just don't see how much benefit we're going to get. I mean, obviously we're going to keep the modulars, and I guess I didn't realize that was the plan for our long term.
If I can respond, we would keep the new modules.
Right. No, I understand that.
Right.
I guess I just somewhere along the line thought that maybe we would get rid of those new modulars, that they were a temporary fix. I mean, I know that we bought them, like I've been kind of following the whole process, but I guess it was my hope, even though I knew better, it was sort of my hope that we would be getting rid of those. So I wanted to mention that. And then also just wanted to comment on, your meeting on the 18th. If the soonest we can get that information, the better. I mean, even if you guys aren't around, I guess you take July off, but as soon as we can get that as a community, and, parents are dying for that.
I
So
will get that out. One way or the other, I will. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak?
I just want to, if I can continue that conversation, could we get an idea from you, and probably it's you, Dr. Hayes, what we have heard that moving fifth grade up to the middle school will help alleviate some of the space constraints at the elementary school. How is that going to happen? What would we gain as far as space is concerned by the fifth grade moving up to the middle school?
Can you just state your name so she know? I know who you are, but.
Yes, Shana Thorell, 59 Hersey Lane.
Thank you.
Well, we have right now 4 fifth grades. 2 of them in the building and 2 of them out in the newest portable building. And so then that frees up those 4 spaces. The discussions, and it's only discussions, I will say, was to move the preschool out to the new portable. So then that frees up another room. And we'd love to get rid of the old portable. So then some of those, obviously those functions then come back into the building. You would have to figure out how we do that. But clearly we'd have some extra classroom space that could help buffer increases in enrollment for some time to come.
So if within the school you have 2 fifth grade classrooms leave the school, the preschool moved out to the new modular.
Gives you 3.
Gives you 3. And then in the old modulars, there's an OT room, a preschool and kindergarten program, currently an enrichment program that wouldn't have to be considered.
Right.
There's Title I, there's speech,
Right.
and so,
Right.
and a reading specialist. So I guess I would just reiterate what Tony said, that you're not gaining that much space. So if it's a numbers game as far as 5th grade going up to the middle school, the idea that you're gaining a lot of space for moving up and you're saving on the idea of a construction project at the elementary school doesn't seem accurate to me. And with that piece to the side, I've already spoken to most of the board members at the public forum that the idea of 5th grade going up to the middle school philosophically, we don't agree with either as a 5th grade team. And I can speak more to that if you want, but I know a lot of you have already heard me.
I wasn't at that meeting, so I would love to hear.
Okay, all right, so I'm doing this off the top of my head then. So in watching the PowerPoint that was created to give information about a 5th to 8th grade configuration, my concern when I first saw it was that I felt like it was very one-sided, that it really pushed the idea of a 5th to 8th grade configuration. And when I talked to administration about that, Dr. Hayes and Chris Mazzoni, Tom Higginbotham, they all said, well, that wasn't the intention. The intention was, we already know what a 6 to 8 model looks like. So let's show everybody what a 5 to 8 model looks like. And my concern is that I don't think the general public does know what a 6 to 8 model looks like. I can't really claim to know what it looks like up there because I'm not there on a daily basis. So while it wasn't intended to be one-sided, watching it from the outside, it felt that way. There were what I found to be some inaccuracies in their PowerPoint. Some of them were, there were some factual inaccuracies saying that the Common Core standards, which we're implementing come fall, were better, no, I lost my train of thought, that 5th grade was better aligned to a 6 to 8 model, but the truth is that the Common Core is organized K to 5 and then 6 to 8. And that one of the meetings, I think Gail had mentioned that the science and social studies standards were a 3 to 4 and then a 5 to 6 model, and they were at the time. But the newest science standards coming up have a K to 5 and then a middle school model. So those were some factual inaccuracies. And then one of the other things they shared is about how research is showing how children are developing, physically, puberty, all these things earlier as the years go by. That research may be true, but it's not what we see in Newmarket. That over all the years, the hundreds of children I've had, I can count on one hand those that have developed to that point that, physically they may have been a better fit. So it doesn't seem like that's a piece to be looking at. We did talk the other day with Dr. Hayes. He invited us to chat, and we talked about some of the benefits of the kids going up there in the future, like having the opportunity to experience a foreign language. But then we also talked about some of the programs at the elementary school they would lose out on, like jump rope, archery, the cross-country team for 5th graders, golf for 5th graders. And I have asked, what sports are available at the 5th grade level. I know there are junior high sports, but I don't understand whether or not New Hampshire allows 5th graders to play at that level. So I think there's just still a lot of questions to ask and a lot of research to be done. And so I guess my biggest thing was just to, just ask you all to not base your opinions on one PowerPoint that while may not have been intended to be one-sided, did feel that way to me. And I just hope that you'll do your best research, understanding that, you also have a fiduciary responsibility, and just put all the pieces together and do what's best for our kids. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shayna.
Thank you. I never thought of the sports part.
No.
Because jump rope's very important in our house.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I thank you for providing that. My take on all of this is that it's still in such a beginning stages of us even beginning to think
Right.
about the process, that those are all very helpful, because, we've never done this either, so we need all this kind of feedback that we can get from people to explain things that we hadn't thought about. I don't live it like all of you do on a daily basis, so I appreciate that. And I think we're still gonna keep trying to research it and figure out what there is and the pros and the cons and all that. Anyone else have anything else to say?
I'm just thinking a little bit about a conversation I had with a friend last evening who lives in the Oyster River District. And I know they have a 5 through 8 model, and his recollection was when his student was in the 5th grade, it was really very self-contained. I'm curious, I want to say there's some other school districts around that have 5th grade with the middle school, and what the pros and cons, programmatically with sports is a really interesting one that I hadn't considered earlier. How much we've had those conversations with some of our neighbors.
The people that presented to you, and I agree with them, is that it's an opportunity to shape it any way you like.
Mhm.
There are, certainly 5 through 8s where 5th grade is a self-contained classroom, and yet then they have exposure to all of a wide array of unified arts. You talk about jump rope. There's no reason why that couldn't be part of the curriculum at a middle school. In terms of sports, both of my boys went to middle school back in the 80s, and they participated as 5th graders in a variety of middle school sports. So it's certainly very common, and that was something they were comfortable with. But you can really shape however you want it. I think for my sons, I think it was 2-person teams I think they had. So they went from 4th grade with, in a secure room, and then 2-person teams, and then moved on in 6th grade. So it really, there's as many options as you would want to think about. There are different ways to do it, whatever makes sense for your school system.
Well, the way I've been trying to think about it myself is that not so much that once they leave that elementary school, they're no longer entitled to any of the access to the programs. And it would, to me, it's mostly moving them to a different building, but still providing them with access to all that they would get in that building as well. So I appreciate the fact that this would be an opportunity for us to mold this to the way that we would want it, with input from the current 5th grade team, and how they, if it had to happen, how would they want it to happen, so to speak.
Well, using jump rope as an example, how exactly would you do jump rope for elementary school and jump rope for a junior high school for the 5th grade?
Well, what time does it happen? It happens after school? Could they?
Well, they're different hours.
Yeah, we sometimes have Friday mornings.
I can't answer all these
No,
questions.
I know, but I'm
Those are
just
things
bringing it
that
up,
we would have to think about.
I think that is a reality, is that we're dealing with different schedules. Not only are you in a different building, but you're on different schedules, so that's going to hinder the 5th grade's access to that programming that they would normally have if they were in the elementary school. So, you can't have a staff member doing jump rope in both buildings at the same time, or, it's, and what about garden club, for some of those kids who aren't, able to do the sports, get their hands dirty. Can you be in both places at the same time? Can we cut you in half? So I think that's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that kind of changes the game a bit.
Well, like I said, I think we're just beginning to look at it, and I think we have a lot more to consider.
Well, remember, the reason that I brought it up is what we're trying to do is plan the full cost of a tuition agreement. And that's not just the cost for high school, it's the cost for middle school. It's the budget for middle school. It's the facility for middle school. And so if this summer, if I'm working with an architect on any kind of a design that's a middle school design, it's important to know, and again, it's a simulation, what might be your preference now, and you might change your preference with further study, but it just adds more clarity to what we'd be designing if we knew at this point it made sense to plan for a 5th grade in the middle school, or it doesn't make sense. Doesn't really matter one way or the other, but it really narrows the field of options that we have to develop as we go through the summer.
Well, I mean, I think these are a lot of good questions that maybe we need to push back to the administration that made that presentation and ask them to help us find the answers. You know, if these are concerns for, I mean, I certainly don't want to make a decision without all the information.
Sure.
You know,
That's a
so.
good point.
And we can't run out every, I feel we need to paint a little bit with broad strokes at this point, where I know we've got a lot of dedicated, creative people, so I know whatever the board chooses, the kids are going to be successful because we've got the staff that'll make it be that way. That said, though, if we run down the road of deciding how we're going to implement a jump rope program, that's just too much in the bug dust for us to, we need to have some understanding of whether the program will continue or
Right.
what have you, but I don't want to get too mired in detail in.
Well, I don't need to know how many, but I don't need to know how many teachers are going to do it, but I think if these are major concerns, then we need to ask. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask.
It's
to-
just, it's another it's something to look at.
Yeah.
It's something to consider because this is about the kids. So we need to think about how does that affect the kids? And jump rope is big in this town.
Well, it's not even just about the jump rope, I really
It's about
don't.
anything.
And
I want,
that-
yes.
That's like, that's the token thing we're
Example,
talking
yeah.
about right now, but. Sure.
I'm Jean Parsons, I'm the special ed director, and I've been chomping at the bit to come up here. In 1991, Oyster River, I'm an Oyster River resident. In 1991, Oyster River moved to a 5 through 8, and my son Kevin was in that class. He's now 29. But he was in the 5th grade at that time, and I was one of those parents. And my best girlfriend was one of those teachers. So we went through this, we lived through it. We had to make the move for space, there was no question, but there was a lot of angst and a lot of discussion. My son had the best year he had all the way through the school system in the 5th grade. It was the best. And we didn't know it at the time, we were very worried. They had a pretty self-contained model, but the students did go out, they went out to all the phys ed, and they went to home ec, and they went to music, and they went to allied arts, and did all the things that the upperclassmen did. And the 5th grade students were very proud of that fact. They were part of the, totally part of the sports program. My husband was a cross-country coach, and the team immediately was a 5 through 8, and it was that way with all sports. It just became, and my husband found as time went on, and my own experience teaching in multiple districts and being a special ed director in multiple districts, most of them that I was involved in, about 6 of them in the last 30 years, they were all 5 through 8s. So there are a lot of districts that are moving in that direction. So just to give you the other side of it, the 5th grade teachers who moved up now can't imagine being back in the elementary school. So I think some of it is change and concern, but it can work well. I just wanted to tell you that I lived through it and my son flourished, for what that's worth.
Well, I appreciate that, thank you.
Alicia Bono, 71 Lady Slipper, for another couple weeks anyway. I always come to these meetings and then I end up thinking I'm not going to speak, but then I end up getting up and speaking. But the one thing I want to make sure I understand is being said tonight is that in order for the community to fully understand what tuitioning out will cost, which we ultimately know is the most important thing that people need to know in terms of whether or not they truly support it. It's all just conceptual until we see that. It relies on this decision being made, at least for exploratory. It doesn't sound to me like we have to commit 100% full force at the degree of jump rope. So I guess I'm asking the board, as uncomfortable as it's going to be, to try to make as many decisions as that need to be made, at least to get these numbers out to the community. And we can figure out, with a spirit of openness, we can even say, this is the design for the purposes of of looking at this in hardcore numbers, but we have a lot of questions still to answer. And I just would hope that you guys, as uncomfortable as it is to kind of commit one way or the other, that we do something so that we can get those numbers. Because I do think it's sort of just so ambiguous right now for people. That's all.
Very true. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? No? Any other board members have anything to say on this issue?
I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but hearing the public comment on it is very nice. It gives us different perspectives that we would not normally have. And thank you for feeling comfortable and being open with us, telling us how you're feeling and your thoughts. It's really important to help us when we have to make this transition to whatever it looks like. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I can close the public comment now. But then we're just going to move right into the middle school only budget.
Yes. And I provided you with a relatively slight update to what we had presented at the budget work session. And so I just want to speak to those changes. I did put them in red font so you could see them stand out. We incorrectly last time showed 4.5 custodians plus a head custodian, and the reality is it's 3.5 plus a head custodian. Even in that scenario, we still would reduce the 1. That's on one of the slides. It shows principal, assistant principal, and so forth, if you're looking for it. And so the total reduction in staff as a result of a tuition agreement would be 60.5, I'm sorry, no, would be 38.3 positions.
Reduced.
Reduced,
Yes.
right. So changing us from 98.8, almost 100 employees, combined junior, senior high, and SAU, and then reducing down to just about 60 employees for a 6 through 8, and then going up only slightly for a 508, 5 through 8. Now that's the adjustments to staff. There were, on the next to last slide, 3 adjustments in the area of operating expenses. There are a number of, the first one you see there is technology software applications. We have a number of applications through which the cost is driven by the total number of students. And we forgot about that first time around, but it's okay, let's go back and look, and we were right. And so that reduces by just over $15,000. Similarly, interestingly enough, for property liability insurance, depends on the number of students. So that's what that reduction is about, the $4,500. And then the other one is SST transportation. We had left that out because generally in our talks, we talked about transportation would be a separate thing, but not in this operating budget. SST transportation, we could subtract that out.
Because we won't be going to SST.
We won't, and...
Not the SST that we know right now.
No.
Oyster River has one.
These are called Career and Technical Education Centers, and SST is ours, and it's been a great experience. From Oyster River, they generally go to Dover and Somersworth. I've had some email exchange with the principal, because I recall them saying at one point that for one program, they go to Rochester. But when he responded to me the other day, he didn't show that. So still trying to get that clarified. But they do go to those 2 schools, to Somersworth and Dover, that's for certain. And so I'm preparing costs for that, because I believe that should be included in the Oyster River budget and built in as part of the tuition rate.
Okay.
And right now, it's not. They have in their budget, what we've used so far, they have had their students plugged in, but we hadn't plugged ours in, and it dawned on me we've got to do that. That's a significant cost. But they would be providing the transportation.
But for purposes of this, it would reduce it by $36,800.
Yes, it does. So that the anyway, to give you the bottom line here, the total staff reductions, both salaries and benefits, reduces our junior, senior high budget by $2,181,897. So that drops it down considerably, obviously. But we're so much salary and benefits. The operating expense reductions would only be $294,817. So I could give you the other numbers, but I don't need to. I think what it does, percentage-wise, is it reduces the junior, senior high budget by 40%. So to run a middle school only, what this proposal is saying, it's cost 60% of what it costs to do a junior, senior high.
That's helpful.
And so that's it. So what I wanted to do, and again, trying to get you to the point of at least conceptually approving a budget on June 20th, is open it up again to any questions you might have, or areas you want me to get you more information about if it's not here.
Anybody given any?
It's a lot of teachers.
Oh, yeah,
It sure is. Well, you're closing a school.
you really
That's
are.
the reality. I mean, we've always talked about tuition, oh, we're sending our kids, but we're closing a school. That's the best way to look at it.
I have thought about this for a while, since the last time you presented it to us, and, one of the discussions we had at that meeting in the auditorium was about the transition piece. And this proposal would eliminate that position, and I don't feel all that great about it for that reason, because we had said that there's going to be a lot of kids, and I know I'm supposed to be thinking about this abstractly, right? So it's not necessarily really going to happen, but that one doesn't set right with me in removing that position.
I'll ask Jean to come up, and Jean, you want to come up and comment? This is the transition coordinator position, and it's down there as a cut. Now, we do school to career, and we'll be doing it completely in a distributed fashion, guidance, classrooms, and so forth. But much of the work that the transition coordinator does is really at the high school level, and Jean can tell you more about that. And so, as they move on to Oyster River, they have their own coordination person over there. So, Jean.
This one breaks my heart, too, because I have a lot of appreciation for Ann. Hard not to personalize it.
Well, it's really not the person. I keep thinking about that position and how that position could help the kids that are actually making this really difficult transition. So I'm really trying that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to think about this in terms of just the position.
Her job description is really working with students transitioning from high school into the real world. And that's the transition that she focuses on. And she does that through various different activities, gets the kids to do activities of exploration, to take assessments, and to start thinking about what they want to do, and then setting up experiences that support that in them, giving them a chance to try things out. It may be an internship, it may be a job shadow, it may be a part-time after-school volunteer situation, it may be during certain times of the day. And but it is mostly high school. And a lot of her time is spent with special education, because we have a federal law and state law that requires, there's fairly extensive requirements to that. And the person at Oyster River also provides those same services. So unless we create a new role for Ann, she really has, it would be a different role for her to talk about transitioning from one building to another. That's not really what she does. Like, she doesn't help students transition from the elementary to the middle or the middle to the high. She's really more about transitioning from the high school into the adult world.
Well, she's transitioning from our high school to another high school and getting them ready to transition again to the real world.
Well, it's not been her role at the moment. I don't know that she has expertise in that. She's a rehabilitation counselor. She has a lot of experience with work, with the Department of Labor, with job descriptions, job requirements out in the world, helping kids to see what things are required, what do we have to do in high school to prepare them for those avenues of work. I don't know that she it's not part of her job description. We could
It
do
is different.
that.
I mean, we could do that, but it
We
is
could do it,
different.
but it's
Like,
not
I
part of
just
her
feel
job.
like
The
this whole
adult-
thing-
The
Yeah.
adult experience that
Yes.
kids
Life
are
skills.
encountering,
Yeah.
life skills.
Right.
Well, this
adult life
whole
skills.
thing, though, is uncharted territory. This is
Yeah.
the, I mean, this
Right.
transition is, so just because she doesn't, I mean, we have to invent this process because we've never done this before.
Yeah.
So if that I just envision the kids that she'd been working with, they're the ones that are moving, they're familiar with her, some of those relationships are very, symbiotic. I mean, she works quite closely with a lot of those kids, and it would be nice to know that she was in our school so that their transition coordinator could, or whatever her name is, could then be like, hey, I'm having what am I trying to say? Like a continuity between the process, for, maybe not for the entire time, but I don't know, and maybe I'm just really being too particular about something I'm supposed to just
I think we can do what
big
we want.
picture.
The board can do what they want with that. And I do think Ann would do a great job. But again, that's the board's decision, that's an added expense. And as far as the requirements, federal government requirements, and the job Ann does now, Oyster River can do that for us.
Sure.
But
Is that part of
the
the
board can do
tuition
what they want to.
wording that we can-
Yes,
Yes.
yes, that's all
Are
part
they
of the.
fully prepared to take on that level of students that are going to need that transitional work?
They have a part-time coordinator now. I think she's like 8/10 or something, and they're gonna move her up to full-time. I know that.
They feel they have the capacity there. We've
That's
had
what
that
they're telling
discussion.
us, yeah.
Both SPED directors met with us.
She's
in our
assured me
meetings.
they have enough staff, so.
But, there's nothing to stop you. If you, again,
No.
this is- conceptually, if you feel the need, what you're feeling the need for is not exactly what she's doing, but if you really feel the need for that, then.
Well, I do,
by all
but
means.
I'm just one
By all
person.
And
means.
I brought it up at the
Yeah.
last meeting too, and, we need someone who can help transition these kids and to do it right. And who better to do that than someone who's working with them? I'm a firm believer that position at least needs to be active until the 2016, 2017, so we know that we're leaving our kids in somebody else's care that's capable of doing it. And that's not saying anything negative towards Oyster River and what they can offer, but we have someone that knows these kids. We have someone who has been in their lives, that they've built a rapport, a relationship. And it's not just the special education population. There are going to be other kids, too, that might need that service. I really firmly believe we need to keep that position.
And that's certainly your prerogative. And Ann would do a great job, there's no question.
Oh, yeah.
I agree, she's a terrific person, and that position could very well do that. But just as long as the board understands it's not a requirement what you're,
No.
And just a-
That would
and
be an
just a
additional.
caution, because.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard, and you said at the beginning, it's so hard to disassociate yourself from the people that are in these roles. Your focus is really on the roles. Ann may look at that and say, I don't want that job, I'm really dealing in the
It's
adult
true.
world, and
It's
go somewhere
possible.
else.
It's true.
And so
Yeah.
that happens. It's really, is the role right for what we're doing for kids?
right?
So widening it out from specifically that sort of role, I'm thinking about school psychologists and guidance. And, looking at these transitions, I know one of the slides has 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16 school years. And I'm thinking that, at some point, we're going to have to really dial in on when things really happen transitionally. And there's going to be more work in a year when kids are moving, paperwork-wise, from the office secretary standpoint, transferring records. There's going to be a certain amount of energy necessary, more than before and more than after. So I don't want to go into the process, should we go down this road into tuitioning, that we say, okay, we're going to run the scenario, and okay, we're going to reduce staff by this number of people. That would happen on day one of the transition plan. Some roles might continue to, a year into it, and then maybe look around and see, boy, we were thinking that we didn't need that person, but we really do. Or
Right.
or the other way.
Totally agree. Yeah, it's new territory.
It is.
But, I think from looking what it's going to cost to run our school district in 5 years out, I think this gets to that. We're not going to be dead on to the $1,000. You know, there's going to be, with people transitioning, you know, we've got real salaries supporting these numbers, right?
Yes.
So we might have a more junior person in a certain position that might make it,
We're really
make
trying
things
to,
go up and down a little bit.
we're really trying to achieve just conceptually what our best estimate is of what this will look like when this happens. And we're really not going to be, you know, bound solid to, oh, wait a minute, back in 2013, you said this. You know, but we need to have, I think, a very reasonable estimate of what our budget will be and what our staffing will be, so that we can begin to project numbers. And one way or the other, we're not going to be far off the mark. But
It's still, we're going to still be
people,
out.
people need to understand that, you know, that it's a reasonable estimate of what we think it would be. And when we get to 2015, we may see things differently. And you're right, we may get into 2015, 16, and say, wow, we missed the boat. We really should have had this, so.
Okay. Any other comments?
Anything else?
I mean, I just want to maybe kind of take what you said earlier and say it a little bit differently, in that, you know, we're talking about closing a school, and as distasteful as that all is, it's kind of tricky for me to take a step back and just be kind of cold and calculating about it. What's it going to cost?
It is hard.
It's not comfortable stuff.
No. No, talking about real people with livelihoods and careers, and it's difficult.
Connections with kids.
Right.
Which, and again, this is all about the kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All set. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. The next thing is high school student council, revised constitution.
Yes, I was approached, I think, a couple weeks ago. Student council advisor Christina Cochran was here and said, the student council has revised its constitution. It appears as though the constitution needs school board approval. And so Anya George, vice president, is here to present the changes and answer any questions you have.
Great.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
So the last time this was amended was January 2010, so we figured it was time for review and possibly update, and we did find quite a few things, mostly grammatical, actually. It wasn't really big changes, but there were some. So, do you all have copies of this?
Yeah,
Okay,
they
good.
did, with all the highlighting, so they
Okay.
get all that.
So on the first page in Article 3, the composition, Section A used to read, the student council shall be composed of an equal number of representatives from each class. And we just mostly clarified that and specified it as no more than 4 and no fewer than 3. In Section B, we said an additional member from the senior class shall be elected as president. The way it was written before, it was pretty confusing, actually. It was kind of like a puzzle. We had to rearrange a lot of things and clarify it. But the way it was before, it seemed as though the senior class had 6 representatives when everybody else had 4, because of the president and a new position that I will talk about in a little bit, which is actually Ashley's position. So that can be open to anybody, but I think in the beginning it was mostly a senior, because you're going to be a senior, so.
Can I ask you a question, Anya?
Sure.
It sounds like in this composition paragraph you've got, you say, we're going to elect 4 from each class.
Yes.
Oh, but if somebody drops or moves or whatever, we're willing to still live with 3. We won't replace 3.
Well,
But-
we can replace 3.
You can, but you
replace
may
one
not.
more, but we don't absolutely have to.
Right. But if it goes below that, then, you know,
Right.
if you're down to 2, you'll bump it up to at least to
Right.
3, right? Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep. So in Section 3, Article 3, Section C, the executive committee shall be composed of 5 elected officers instead of 4, which includes a public relations officer, which I will also address later in the public relations officers section. So in Article 4, the elections and qualifications, kind of goes back to the composition, actually. It says in Section A, Each class shall be represented by no more than 4, but it used to say a maximum of 5. So we just dropped that down to 4. Not including the elected president and student representative to the school board. That is where the 6 seniors came in that we figured should not actually be occurring. Section B takes the place of Section J that we decided to completely cut out. If there should be fewer than 3 representatives in a class, the student council shall nominate class members to fill vacancies. The nominations will then be brought to the class officers for recommendation. Before, it was just that the student from the class who shall have attained the next highest vote total shall become a member. But in recent years, only 3 or 4 students have actually run, so there were no extra people, extra members to be even looked at. And so if that were to occur in the previous wording, it said the class officers will appoint a new member for the remainder of the year, but we figured student council should have a say in the next member of student council, not just the class officers, because we know how it runs. We might have an idea who fits best. And let's see. The rest of the sections in that article were mostly just little wording changes and grammar to make it actually fully clear and make sense. So, Article 5, the only change was we added the public relations officer and the student representative to the school board, which I will talk about in the next article. I'll skip that note until I get to that section. So, the first change is in section F of Article 6. The secretary, we added section E, which will create and bring the agenda to the meetings. Our secretary this year has done a fantastic job with that, so we figured we'd just add that for the duty of the secretary. It was very nice that he did that for every week. Section G, subsection E, the treasurer shall obtain the money box for scheduled events as requested. Since the treasurer deals with money, we figured that that duty would best be fit by that person. Section H is one of the new officers. This is Public Relations Officer to the community, and the next one is Public Relations Officer to the school. So the note in the beginning states that this position can be done by one person if 2 people don't want to do it. If there are not 2 people who are up for election, it can be done by one person. But if there are 2, it can also be split up. The main difference between them is that the Public Relations Officer to the community is in charge of getting the word out to the public about what we're doing and like creating announcements and advertisements, just spreading the word as to what student council is doing within the school. But the Public Relations Officer to the school is doing the same thing within the school. So creating announcements to send to Mr. Andruski to read in the morning, putting flyers up around the school if we're having an event or something like that, and just being in charge of communicating within the school. So that's why it can be done by 2 people or 1. It's not that different, but it can be split. And the student representative to the school board was added to this constitution. It wasn't in there before. So this person attends scheduled school board meetings and represents the school to the board. Attends student council meetings as well, so they know what's happening and can report back to you. And be updated on school information, important dates, everything like that Ashley is going to do fantastic with. Article 7, the elections of officers, Section B. It used to say the newly elected members shall meet on the 2nd Tuesday following the elections. This, we figured, it's always subject to change if the schedule doesn't work out for the majority of the members of the student council. We felt it shouldn't be that mandatory. It can be subject to change. Let's see. In that one, there were a lot of grammar issues we just changed around. I don't know if you want me to read all those, but
Yeah,
probably
no,
not.
although I did catch something in C. Looks like you should have done strike through the word meeting.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome, yeah.
Article 8, Section A said the regular meetings shall alternate between lunch meetings and after-school meetings, the sequence of which is decided on the acting council. We changed that to be at the time and location set by the acting council, just like the other meetings. This year it wasn't practical to have it in that sort of schedule. We met every Tuesday morning before school. So if we're not following the Constitution, we feel it should be changed to fit the student council of that year. Let's see. In Section E, we changed any member accumulating 2 unexcused absences during any quarter or 4 during the year shall be removed from the student council. We changed that to 3 unexcused absences per semester or 6 during the year. And also, an absence will count if a member arrives 5 minutes or more after the posted beginning time. That was in the previous document. We thought that was a little harsh, so we changed it to 10 minutes. 10 minutes will count as an absence now.
Unless it's excused, like it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. In Article 8, Section, wait a second, sorry. Oh, okay, under excusable absences, number 5 says presenting a reasonable explanation to the president or advisor or the student council before the absence would count as an excusable absence. But we changed that so that it omitted or the student council because it's more official to approach the advisor or the president rather than letting some kid who's a member possibly or possibly not relay the message. Right.
You are excused.
It gives them such power.
Article 9, Section E, we just changed less to fewer. Grammar. Article 10, we omitted Section C and D, which is more about scheduling, and just said that the executive committee shall meet at a previously determined time, whenever works for them. Let's see. Article 14 used to state that the president or vice president shall attend all school board meetings and report to the student council about the meetings. This has now been changed to the student body representative to the school board, because now we have a new position. And Section B was very similar, just changed to student body representative again. And Article 15 was completely omitted, which was the parliamentary procedure, stating that at all regular meetings, Robert's Rule of Order shall be followed. That wasn't followed. Most of us didn't actually know what it was. So we're having efficient meetings without it. We figured it's best not to try to instill a new procedure. We'll just continue with the way we've been doing it. And Article 17, Section A states that any member may propose amendments in writing. We discussed all of this, all of the changes to this document verbally. We sat down as a little group and just discussed every page, every word of every page. So if we had done that in writing, it would have taken a lot more time and effort. We figured we would just leave it as any member may propose amendments, and then we'll talk about it and figure it out as we go. And that's it.
Nice.
Good job, guys.
Very
Seems like
thorough.
you put a lot of effort in thinking about making the document reflect what you do and make things move more smoothly.
Thank you.
Good job.
So I was just going to ask that process. So did you hand this out before the first meeting and say, look this over, and then come back to the next meeting with ideas? Or was it just read it and...
We began this on, was it before the first day of school?
It
that
was
freshman
last year,
orientation?
because I was going to be stepping in this year as student council advisor. So last year, one of the things that I wanted to start looking at was the Constitution. So we started actually kind of
getting out there that, hey, we're going to be doing this, and then the beginning of the year, there was a small committee that sat down. And that's when we did a lot of the work, and then we had to bring it to each of the classes and get their approval for it, bring it to Mr. Andruski, and then it was suggested we bring it to the school board for approval.
Yeah.
So it's been a year-long process.
Yeah. Started with a group of probably 5 or 6, and then Alex Chase and I worked on it together, editing it and just making it finalized.
Seems very thorough.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm just curious, the school board rep, what was that part of, if it wasn't part of this before? Was it just like this hanging?
That, I guess
position?
so. I mean, this hadn't been looked at in 3 years, so.
So it didn't really have a home until now?
No, it was before this position, it was just vice president or president, whoever could attend the meeting that night would go, and they are supposed to know what's going on because they're the president or vice president. So we figured we'd make a new position, open it up to somebody else who can be there every meeting.
Very intuitive. I like that. Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the Newmarket High School Student Council Constitution as presented.
I'll second that.
That's a great motion. Any discussion on that? I think we just did it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Board. Okay, moving right along. Spring sports participation.
Each season, I present to you the participation numbers that we have for all of our teams, and I also give you the October enrollments, so you get a sense of how many total students there are in the high school and then the junior high. When I looked at this data, what I was pleased with, and I just compared this year with last year, if you look at the total numbers of boys and girls up above the October 1 enrollment, you'll see that the total has dropped by, let's see, 3 and 9, by 12 students. Yet when you look down below at the participation levels of boys and girls in high school, the rates are up. The number of kids participating is up, which is, to me, just terrific. More kids playing is a good thing. Similarly, when you look down at junior high, you see some of that. The boys' number went up from 55 to 62. The girls did drop, but if you look back in other years, it dropped back to a more typical number of girls participating. But anyway, I love to see as many kids as we can get out there participating in sports, and I think they did very well this year.
Yeah, they did. We've had great representatives.
I'd just like to make a quick comment about, I guess, spring track and field in particular. Whether it's cross-country or winter track or spring track in particular, those have been really small programs. If you were to take this chart and go back a couple more years, the numbers go down into the low single digits. Oh. So like to recognize the fact that that has really grown and I think represents a lot of other opportunities for kids. And actually just mentioned earlier that Mr. Giroux, competed in the state meet in a hurdle event. Up until, I think, this season, we did not even have practice hurdles in town. And all of a sudden, we've got practice hurdles, like 3. And I might be overstating, it might be 2.
Build up a little speed.
But, showing up at a meet to learn how to hurdle in a competition is a little bit trickier than
just running.
Having a coaching opportunity.
Yeah.
So hats off to the coaching for that and
the team.
And the team and a lot of hard work. Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
it was just until the last year or so that I even knew that, was it Dylan Walker does the high jump? I didn't even know that we had kids that were competing in those kind of activities. So I'm glad that we're getting it out there.
I mean, it used to be that the entire cross-country team or track team could fit in half of the back seat of a sedan. And now we need a bus.
This is good. I like that. It's a positive.
And we have cross-country in elementary school as well.
Yes, and that's
helping
great
maybe.
participation.
Yep.
That program. So thank you for.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we're moving on to the school year calendar I can say canceling June 4th school day. Yay, everybody's happy about
Yeah,
that.
as you know, I canceled the 24th which is the Monday of the very last day of school, and I did it purely for reasons that it's going to enable that school to clear out all of the books and materials, and when I toured when I did the taping of the school spotlight about the tours, and we went into all these rooms, it's immense what teachers are going to have to pull out of there and then put back, and so it's a big undertaking. So I'm really glad that we did decide, or I did decide anyway, and to cancel that school day, but technically, the board really sets the school year calendar, and so I think it's appropriate you should take a vote to approve this adjusted school year calendar.
We would need a motion for that.
I motion that we accept the new calendar.
What it would be to reduce it to?
Reduce it to 180.
180 days. It's a 180-day calendar.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
I'll throw a couple things in. One is, so everyone knows that Newmarket has a policy of 181 days where the state requirement is 180. So we're still in compliance with what the state expectation is.
Right.
And I just wanted to ask what the expectation of staff is as far as all those science teachers that need to get all their stuff out. Can you speak to that process at
Yeah,
all?
that process has already begun. I mean, they've done planning already, and they provided boxes, and I know science teachers are already packing things up and moving them. One of the challenges presented by that new asbestos problem I told you about, the asbestos, the physical science classroom, which is our biggest science lab in the back, was only minimally going to be affected by this project. And so that's where we were going to store a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of room there. But it turns out that in the analysis, because they go into that room, there are asbestos tiles in there. So now we have to find other locations we're taking things to. But they have already started, and I know I've heard comments about several science teachers that have already done a terrific job of starting to pack things up and get them ready. I know there's going to be quite an effort over the weekend of that last weekend, and then it's going to be all hands on deck, I think, for that Monday. Teachers have been told to expect it's full day. It's a full day, and they'll provide them with lunch, and everybody hopefully will pitch in and help, because again, it's not just a box of books. I mean, there's stuff on bulletin boards and taped here and there, and there's just a tremendous amount of collection of things that people have collected over many years of working in the same space, you can imagine. So that's
All
what
the
that
tools
day
of the
is.
trade.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, obviously, if people aren't capable of heavy lifting, then okay, we don't have you do heavy lifting, but there are other things that can be done that are going to help empty a number of spaces, number of offices.
Does that, I mean, because this big move is happening at the high school, what does that mean for the elementary school teachers?
It's a full day for them. We've talked a bit about some activities on the day. Of course, they have to close out their rooms as well. That isn't usually a full day. But one of the things that we talked about in a meeting this morning, which I think made a lot of good sense, as you know, we've gone from 2 building special ed coordinators to 1. And so what we talked about this morning is to try and ease that transition, to have that person on that last day meet with the grade level teams and talk a bit about next year and how it may work. So
Okay.
just good introduction, I think, to the school. So there'll be things for them to do.
It's a good use of their time.
Yeah, I think so.
And otherwise, it'll be a big wellness opportunity in carrying boxes
So
downstairs.
the junior, senior high, yeah. If you've gone out back, you'll see, I think, 4 or maybe 5 trailers where a lot of stuff is going to have to be moved out there.
Hmm.
They're already out.
Okay.
Any other questions? Did we vote on this motion yet?
Yeah.
I can't remember, it's been so long.
What was the day of the school that was canceled?
Monday, June 24th was canceled. still, it's a no-school day for students, but it is a day of work for staff.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? All right. 4-0. Let's see, we've got a number of job descriptions.
Yes,
Provided us with-
because it's a little bit complicated, I had sent you a memo back on May 24th outlining what I wanted to do with the technology department. Right now, we have 3 positions. Tech operations manager, we just filled that not long ago. The fellow will start right in July. We have a data manager position, but the job description was a dual kind of role. It was facilitating data use within the schools, but it was also tech support. And as it turned out, the fellow was doing all tech support. That's where we were challenged, and that's what happened. And he has since left. And then we had an integration specialist position. And so what my reorganization here is still use the 3 positions, but we truly need 2 people doing tech support. There's no question. That idea of combining just was not going to work. It didn't matter who was in there. But as we talked about the 3rd position, integration specialist or data manager, yeah, at some point we'd like to have the 2, but right now clearly the preference is for the data manager. And you see, I sent you a job description that's considerably edited that really does convert this into a position that's intended for an experienced teacher who is really conversant with assessment and the tools for using assessment to capture what teachers can use to improve instruction, and working with teachers and training teachers. And that's really a need that we have. And, if you look back over our goals for the last couple of years, you'll see that has always been a goal, and we've just never really gotten there. But I really do believe this is the model to get there. So what I would like to get is your approval of this revised job description for data manager, which really changes the direction, and then fill that position and have that person ready to go starting in the fall.
We would need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the job description of the data manager.
I second that motion.
All right, any discussion?
I guess I have a couple of questions. They might not be directly connected with the language here, but I'm kind of maybe looking for a little bit of vision of like, what is their working relationship with the tech operations manager? I see that the data manager reports to the director of curriculum and instruction.
Right.
So how much are those, what's the,
It really-
are they physically in the same place? or-
No, but technically it takes 3 positions, reduces the tech department to the 2 tech support positions. This is much more a curriculum instruction position, and has very little to do with the technology department.
Okay. Where would this person
Sit.
leave their pen at the end of the day?
We have a
So-
space in both buildings, because, the person would be in both spaces, and so I think we haven't finalized it, but we do have spaces that we think would work for both.
Okay.
So we're good.
Where they have opportunity to be closer to the educators in the building.
Right,
And not as
right,
much.
and that's what it is. I
Right.
mean, our biggest goal beyond student safety is improving student achievement. And we need to work smarter, and by working smarter, it means taking a look at assessment data and saying, okay, what are we doing well, and what aren't we doing well? And we need, as a district, we need to get better at finding that out, and then taking that and changing our
Informing.
instruction so that we improve student achievement. And that's something we've known for a couple of years and have made attempts and have come up short on those, but we really believe a full-time position is going to help us tremendously.
I mean, you remember when we fought for this position, right? And
Oh, yeah.
when,
Right.
I think it was Dan Kuchar who was crunching the numbers, and we still have never achieved having someone actually just sit with that
Right.
data.
Well, we've had people try to work towards those things, but they get sucked into
just-
the vortex of technology needs.
Absolutely, right. So we're pulling it away completely.
So this person would be responsible for looking at kneecap data and reporting to
And
the
NEWA
teams,
data,
NEWA,
and any other assessments.
creating those
Yeah.
slow goals that's coming down the
Right,
pike.
you know, and sitting down with teachers and helping them to interpret what it is, and also to train them. I mean, I think that's an important goal. So there's nothing better than the teacher being able to go in and see the data and know how to massage it and know how to get answers to questions that come along. So it's going to be a learning process. So we needed somebody who also has that ability to train teachers, not just, here's the data and here's what
Yeah.
it means for you. Yeah.
So it's really not so much like the technical computer, it has that teacher. kind of-
Right,
it has
yeah, the
both
only
of them.
technical side is learning how to get at.
Extract the data.
Extract from the data, and I think that's what our teachers, many of our teachers have a hard time with. And somebody who's solely focused on that can really help a lot.
Well, it's a time crunch too as a teacher to try to
Right.
figure out, okay, how do I get all the NEWA scores from my
Right.
students? This will also help support any RTI,
Yes,
and
Yes,
enrichment
yes.
data that teachers
Right.
can do within their own classrooms as
Right.
well, so.
yeah, totally agree. It's a great step forward, I think.
Any other
Good.
discussion? No? All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, 4-0.
The next two job descriptions are somewhat related through the budget process. For next year, we're going down from 2 building special ed coordinators to 1 who works district-wide. And the concept was that to help that function, to be sure we do that function adequately, each building would then have a team leader. And so the special ed staff, the principals, the building coordinator, the building special ed coordinator who's staying with us, have all put their heads together to come up with job descriptions so that we're clearly communicating to all the people what's expected. And so you have 2, we did not have an existing job description for these, so these are brand new. That's why there's nothing edited there. So you have one for special education coordinator, and then another one for team leaders. I did put a new team leader one on your desk this evening, that's just on the second page. At the bottom is the only difference from what you had seen before, and it's a statement about length of workday. Just to make it clear to people that, yeah, from time to time, this is going to extend the length of your workday. There are meetings after school that you'd have to be facilitating and so forth. And Jean was, leading the effort in developing these, so she's here to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, so they need to be motioned separately?
I think you should, yeah, we always do.
And those motions would be,
I move to accept the special education team leader position. Job description.
okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion?
I have one minor edit.
Okay,
Under reports 2, it says special education building coordinator, school principals. I think building should be.
building comes out, you're right.
Actually, there's building coordinator in number 7,
Ah.
building coordinator number 10, number 13, number 17. So
Search and replace.
Someone needs to search and replace
Okay.
this document. That's all right.
Would this be someone like a case manager who would be able to fit this description and be a special education team leader for the elementary school?
Yes, exactly. It would have to be, the elementary team leader would have to be an elementary special ed teacher, and the junior, senior high would have to be a junior, senior high special education teacher in the building, someone who has those added skills.
Okay.
All right, so that was my question. So these aren't necessarily, you're going to post for these publicly?
Well,
Or
we're
Not
going to,
publicly,
gonna
internally.
post it internally.
Yeah.
You
Internal
would ask for
posting.
Right,
teachers to
And
step
there's a
up?
stipend that goes with it.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And would there be a hiring committee that looks at this, or is this something that you and the administrative
I think
team
it'll be me and the administrative team that will look at it.
Any other questions? Okay, I think it's a great idea. I do remember, I think, when we talked about reducing from 2 coordinators to 1, you know, we talked about this, and I'm glad I'm finally seeing it, but, I mean, this first year will be our pilot program.
Right.
So hopefully we'll be able to come back and report to us and tell us all these wonderful things about how it's working. But yeah, I mean, it would be great to know, to see that if it needs to be tweaked or, you know, because it is kind of like our stab at trying something different that we haven't had in a while.
Yeah, I can report as often as the board would like.
Yeah, okay.
Be glad to.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, anyone? No? Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the special education coordinator job description as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? So am I correct in that there really wasn't a job description for this person, even though they've been?
All right. I think
There was a list of some of the things that that person actually did physically. That was from, I don't know, about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was not even accurate.
Okay.
That's all there was.
Well, I'm glad that we're, you know, because I think we've.
This is the boss guy, he's organizing us.
Yeah, we're getting it all down now.
And having these coupled with the performance tool also really is great for
Right.
accountability
Good
and
feedback,
just closing
yeah.
loops.
Yep. Any other questions? No? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
All right, 4-0. Any correspondence?
None.
Any business department?
Not this evening? No.
Okay, now we're moving to policy. Almost there.
You have 5 policies here. The first one deals with fixed assets. Probably a month ago, you approved a policy on fixed assets, which was really very general. And the -R in the DID-R is the policy number. The R means it's related, and it's obviously much more specific. And I know I've told you before, I had Christine review all of this and make sure that this was still all very appropriate, and because it's a review of what was there. It's not, so there's nothing to change. And so that still needs your approval, just so we keep pace with our, every 5 years, let's look at all the policies.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the fixed assets policy DID-R.
I second that.
Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None?
Although I want you to vote them one at a time, the remaining 4 really are new, all new policies for us. One dealing with school board elections, one if a board member or a district officer resigns, if there's an unexpired term, how is that fulfilled, and then a policy on student members of the school board. And we had none of those. And so when we had the resignation from Meg Looney Moore, that's when I uncovered these, and I think even though they are clearly a reflection of state law, it isn't like we were flying blind. State law governs what we do. I think it's nice to have it in district policy as well. And so I put all 4 of those before you for your approval.
Okay. Let the rapid motions begin.
Okay, I move to accept the unexpired term fulfillment draft. Not draft. Unexpired term fulfillment.
Policy BBBE.
BBBE.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. The next one? Who wants it?
I move to accept the student members of the school board, BBBF.
Okay, anyone?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Bet you didn't know you had your own policy, Ashley.
No one else has had that policy.
No.
You should feel honored.
Special. You should frame it.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. 2 more.
You're rolling.
You're doing good.
I move to accept the school board elections, BBB.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And the last one?
I can't find it.
Okay. Cliff has it.
I did it a moment ago.
BBBC.
Thank you. Move to accept the policy, board members or district officer resignation, BBBC.
I'll second that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still not finding it.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. All right, we went through there.
Thank you very much.
All right, resignations.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bring one forward. But a terrific teacher that we all certainly hate to lose, but Susan Parsley has submitted a letter of resignation for your acceptance.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation of Susan Parsley.
And my second would be?
I will second it with regrets.
Okay. All right, any discussion?
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Yeah, sorry to see her
Great
go.
job. Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Served my kids and many others very
Yes.
well.
Department head this last year, too.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was a big hole.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Wish? None? Thank you. All right, now nominations.
Nominations, grade 7 science teacher, replacing Greg Thayer. And his name is Jacques Barreau. He actually did work for us at a period of time as a paraprofessional, but he has some interesting teaching experiences as well. And he went through a very competitive process, I will tell you. They had a number of candidates that they were very pleased with, and it actually came down to 2 finalists that were so good. This doesn't happen often, but they gave me a call and said, would you? And so myself and Pat Ballantyne interviewed the candidates, and you could see why they both were sky high
So they
about
couldn't make
both
it,
of them.
they couldn't make a
They
choice?
couldn't make the
yeah.
decision, and they wanted some more input. It doesn't always happen. And they were just both terrific candidates, but he was our choice, and I'm happy to see him joining us. Jacques Barreau, grade 7 science.
He's got some pretty big shoes to fill, so.
Yes, he does.
Well, that's a great problem to
Yes,
have.
yes,
to,
yes.
To have 2 really strong candidates.
Seriously, it was just
How lucky
terrific.
are we?
Yeah.
And he knows he'll be being watched, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Who would want to come in? Welcome, I'm going to welcome you. I'm not going to.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the nomination of Jacques Barreau
I
for
second that.
7th grade science.
Any second that? Okay, any discussion? No, really, I'm welcoming you. I'm not trying to like diss you on public. I'm glad that we had that problem, and I'm glad Mr. Thayer was on the committee, so obviously he's given us his blessing.
Yeah.
So, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have a manifest.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept the total of all manifests of $789,471.98.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion? No, probably not. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. All right, our calendar. We only have one sheet, you know what that means?
Yes.
Well, I've got something to talk about in July, if I may.
Okay.
The Budget Committee met on May the 20th, and part of the discussions then was with regard to having a budget law training workshop, and that is at this point scheduled for Monday, July 22nd. And the school board is invited. Looks like we're having trouble pinning down someone to speak from the school board, State School Board Association?
Yeah, you want me to say a few words about that?
Please.
The concept was to try and have a dual presentation, because LGC, which is what the town is going to use, they do not do school district budget presentations. And so I was trying to find people, and I have found two people who I think are terrific, and they agreed to tag team on it. But getting a date was very difficult. And so I communicated with Ellen Snyder, chair of the Budget Committee, and said we'd do better if we did the school one in September. And she said, that's fine. So you'll do the municipal one in July, and then the school one will be sometime in September.
So is that because they weren't able to commit into July?
Yeah, and also because from our own experiences trying to get dates for a retreat.
Yeah.
Was a handful for us. We know that. Yeah. And so with them and us, but I do have, it's a fellow from both the School Boards Association who does that kind of training, and then a fellow from the Administrators Association who's very good at it too. So,
Oh, good.
so I think it'd be a great, great evening.
So the concept would be that the Budget Committee will have this form, and the school board will go to the one on July 22nd, and then we'll have one in September, and the Budget Committee and the Town Council will come. Is that the idea?
Yeah, all three bodies are welcome
Okay.
to all of the
Participating.
events. Yeah.
Okay. And what time was that?
I'm not
I don't know
certain, but stay tuned. It's either going to be either 6 or 7 o'clock
Okay.
as it's a Monday evening.
All right. I think I already have it in my calendar, but thank you for that. All right, we should also mention again, Friday, June 7th, 6:30, Drama Club, A Floating Princess. And then Saturday, the 8th, 2 p.m., Drama Club, A Floating Princess. Don't miss it. And then we have the awards. That's the
Senior awards night.
Senior award night, yeah.
Graduation on the 14th. The one thing that I noticed was not on here, on the 21st at 6 o'clock, is the grade 8 commencement.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, what time is that?
6 o'clock.
6
Oh,
o'clock.
you just said that. All right.
Bless you.
Okay. Anything else we need to know about? There was some other, like, Oyster River meetings, but that's not.
Yeah, that'll be on the
Okay.
18th. Yep.
Okay. So it looks as though we have a reason for non-public.
Yes, we do.
Shall I read these?
Um,
We're going to non-public under RSA 91-A, semicolon 3, 2B, which would be the hiring of any person as a public employee. And the other reason would be RSA 91-A, semicolon 3, 2D, which is consideration or negotiation of pending claims.
I'll make a motion to go into non-public for these reasons.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Uh,
No, you
Not
can't.
so fast.
Can't do all in favor.
Oh, that's right, it's a roll
This
call.
has to be by roll call vote.
Sorry.
So, Kelly Foster?
Aye.
Oops, wait a minute. Cliff Chase?
Aye.
Good night.
Liz McKinney?
Yes, aye.
Gail Dorschel Wentworth?
Aye.
Thank you. And